Greetings and salutations, creature lovers. This is Mr. Venom welcoming you to episode 34 of No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. Before we start talking about this month's movie, let me go ahead and introduce my cohorts. First, coming to us from the main show, No More Room in Hell, it is Mr. Derek B. How you doing, Derek?
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
And also coming to us from Fresh Cuts and the Horror Countdown podcast, it is Mr. Don Anelli. How you doing, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, folks. Derek kind of chuckled because Derek and I are both very, very interested to find out what Don thought about this month's movie. It's because he didn't give us any kind of precursor on his thoughts, so we kind of have a side bet on what we think Don might think of the movie. But before we do that, let's just have a quick little discussion. Obviously, this is our first episode of 2025. Happy New Year, gentlemen. Happy New Year, listeners. I wanted to talk a little bit about creature features in 2024. We actually had a pretty decent amount of creature features come out in 2024. Some of them actually got theatrical releases, which is something that we don't see too often with creature features. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Derek. And Derek, just kind of talk to me about what you thought of the state of creature features in 2024, and are there any standouts for you?
It was the year of the spider. We had like a big one with Sting, which actually played in theaters and shit, which was kind of mind blowing for like a Well Go USA. I know they got more popular during COVID times because I was like, hey, let's slide in there. Because back in before COVID, you never seen any Well Go USAs in fucking theaters. Not around here, anyways. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, that was big. And then we had that like Shudder one, Infested. You know, two different types of spider movies. One alien spiders, one like other like normal spiders. But you know, that's the only thing that I really like gravitated towards. It was like either that or fucking devil possession movies. You know.
Don, same question. Was there anything from 2024 that stood out to you, creature feature wise?
Let's see. I'm pulling up my rankings right now because I'm point we're doing this. I'm still doing my best of 2024 rewatches, trying to figure everything out. As of right now, the main things I'm noticing is, I mean, you know, obviously the Year of the Spider with the Sting and Infested, but the main thing for me is just the schlocky B-rate creature features are kind of my bread and butter. That's kind of where so many of my high-ranking films at the moment are. If you listen to the main show and you'll hear the best of list, you'll know that a couple of big films for the year were Carved and Under Paris. I mean, technically...
Shark, yeah. I forgot about that one.
I mean, you can probably technically throw Abigail into that if you wanted to as a vampire film, another one kind of, in theaters, as, Derek said. But yeah, for me, it was all the low budget films. I know that Venom, you mentioned a lot of the Winnie the Pooh films. The other films that factory produces are some of my favorite films going right now. I mean, they do stuff like Spiders on a Plane, which is... Yeah, that one's really fun. Kind of a little, sluggish, and it shows its budget, but I had a lot of fun with that. Yeah, there's stuff like You Shouldn't Have Let Me In, which is another really fun vampire film. But I mean, there's like goofy stuff like Crackoon and Graveyard Shark. Crackoon was a blast. I love that movie.
That was fun, yeah.
Let's see, Graveyard Shark, like I said, that one was a really fun one. Easter Bloody Easter was another really good one. I really like that. I know it kind of has its flaws, but if you look at it just purely as for, what it is and how much fun it is, Werewolves, I thought was really better than I thought.
Oh, I didn't see that one, yeah.
There's issues with it. I mean, it sets up something global that it would have been really fun to, kind of delve deeper into. It's one that, they probably should have, not have expanded as much as it did and gone as massive in scope as it did. as quick as it did. I mean, this is one that I could probably have seen. I would have wanted day one of this as the first one, and then this being part two. Like, I thought that, setting up what it showed in part one. I don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, if you know the plot, it's 1 year after this supermoon event turns the whole world into werewolves, and they realize that it's going to happen again. So they're taking precautions with what happened last time, and not making sure it happens again. But inevitably things go wrong again. If you just want balls out creature action, it has a lot of that. If you're looking for, more of like a coherent story or like a well-rounded one, it kind of, loses the ball on that. But, if you just want to see, men in werewolf suits rip people to pieces, I think it delivers on that end. But yeah, for me, a lot of this year, if you overlook like the weird spider trend, yeah, it was more just like the low budget stuff, like the B movies that pop up on Tubi or Fossum or Amazon Prime. Like a lot of that kind of stuff. I you go in knowing what you're going to get, and they kind of deliver on that. But yeah, other than that, don't really have much else, because I mean, yeah, it's kind of. It was a fun year. I can't say that there was too many that I was really like overtly disappointed with, but yeah, it was pretty fun time. Yeah, it was another really strong year. I'm kind of curious to see where my list is going to land.
It was also the year of the real monster known as Diddy.
Oh God, that's a story for another podcast. Fortunately,
Too soon.
I just don't want to waste any breath on that man. I have no desire to speak about him. Honestly,
I hear you. It's like I was going through my fucking phone today. I'm like, oh no, I gotta delete this song.
I actually have a block of multiple. Like whenever a celebrity gets in the news for really bad stuff, I will block references. So like nothing P. Diddy comes up on my phone. Nothing Donald Trump comes up on my phone. Basically, I have a list of about a dozen different celebrity names where that they could literally fall off the fucking face of the planet and I wouldn't give a shit. So I just don't want to watch. I don't want to see content about them. I don't want to waste my time. I'm an old man, folks. My time on this planet is limited, and I don't want to fucking waste it on ridiculous shit like celebrities being stupid. So, yeah. Let me go ahead and get in here now on my thoughts on 2024. And I got to say, for as far as creature feature goes, 2024, I feel, was a little bit of an upswing. Derek and Don have already both mentioned the year of the spider with, big releases like Infested and Sting. Both playing in theaters. I mean, Infested really only played in like theaters in like New York and LA, but I'm lucky enough to be in LA, so I was able to see it in a theater. And actually, it did end up on my top 10, spoiler alert. So if you haven't listened to our Fresh Cuts top 10 of 2024, I unapologetically adore spider movies. And when they're done well, when they actually give us a decent story, great effects, really good kills, then I'm on board for it. And as I said in my original review, I love Infested because it gives us both the small spiders, it gives us the arachnophobia style spider movie, but then it also gives us eight-legged freaks by the end of the movie. So it's that perfect balance of over-the-top camp and, legitimate fear of regular-sized spiders. So, yeah, Infested was easily my creature feature of 2024. The only creature feature I saw in my top 10.
Oh, you know which one? I forgot to mention. There was one that did fuck me up. Was that a centipede one that Thailand made that was released this year?
Oh,
Creepy Crawly?
Yeah, that one fucked me up.
Oh, that one came out. No, that one was the last year. But yeah, I know what you mean. That one was still really good. I like that one.
Yeah, it was either. I think it was like it got like the Blu-ray release this year though, like near the.
No, I got it last year.
Maybe it was like borderline. Maybe. But it could be.
Maybe like December or something. But
yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's why I get confused. But that one was pretty good.
Yeah, Thailand's really coming up with a lot of good stuff lately. I don't know if you saw that one, The Beast Within or Beast Beneath, I think. It's like a giant. It's like Tremors it's a lizard instead of the worms.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be The Beast Beneath because The Beast Within is it's a movie I'm about to bring up actually.
Okay.
That piece of shit. You actually like that?
Yeah, sadly yes, because it is technically. In the ether, even though I didn't like ether. Trust me.
Yeah, no, that one was on my I didn't want to talk about it list.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't blame you. But it was, once again, another theatrical release, a pseudo creature feature, if you will, but, definitely doesn't have the creature action of a movie like Werewolves. I also thought that Sharks made a great little appearance in 2024 with stuff like obviously Under Paris is probably the best shark movie of the year. But then we also got stuff like Something in the Water, No Way Up, which No Way Up being a very indie production, and maybe not the most heralded shark movie out there. I actually fucking loved it. I loved No Way Up. The human drama in that movie is what made it for me. The shark action was great, but seeing the interaction of these people inside of this plane under the ocean and how they're dealing with their situation just worked so much better for me. It was kind of like that shark movie with Alicia Silverstone from 2023. I already forgot the name of it. Don might remember it.
Requiem.
Yes, the Requiem. Thank you. Yeah, like that one I liked a lot, but it wasn't because of the shark action. It was because of the relationship with the two people, our main characters in the movie. So, yeah, I mean, you don't often get creature features with great human stories, but when you do, I definitely want to point them out. So, yeah. And then, like I said, Werewolves with the film Werewolves, Beast Within, Outcome Wolves was another one that came out. I think that one had that one wasn't werewolves. It was more of a survival horror with actual wolves, kind of like The Grey, but it was still a pretty solid movie. If anybody saw it, Adam McDonald directed that one. So that was pretty awesome. So, yeah, and like I said, we've already talked about Sting. Hellhole. Hellhole was another one that was kind of a pseudo creature feature, coming to us from the Addams Family, who did, of course, Hellbender. One of my favorite movies from that year when Hellbender came out. I think it was literally my number 2 movie of that year. I absolutely adored it. Hellhole obviously is not at the level of of their first movie, but Hellbender, but I still a good creature feature. I know a lot of people had some issues with it, but it was kind of a return to form, after the Addams Family did that weird carnival movie a couple of years ago. So it is like
or something like that.
Something like Where the Devil Roams, something like that. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, man, I thought overall 2024 was a solid creature feature year, both theatrically and on VOD. And we even, as Don pointed out, we got some great foreign stuff this year from countries like Thailand. So, yeah, overall, bravo to 2024 for being a fairly solid creature feature year. Let's hope 2025 keeps that trend going. Now, I'm actually 3 movies into 2025. I know, it's only as we record this, it's only January 17th. We don't get a whole lot of releases the first couple of weeks. So, it kind of takes a little bit of time to start developing a pool of 2025 movies. But all 3 2025 movies I've seen so far this year have all been really good. Like, none of them have even been just solid or middle of the road. Like, all 3 of them have been really good. One of them we'll be talking about on the next episode of Fresh Cuts, but for now, let's just say 2025 is looking really good. Now, I don't think we've actually gotten. I guess you could call the new Lee Winnell movie a creature feature. It is The Wolfman, so obviously, one of those original Universal monsters that we all love. And I just saw it today. Actually, it opens in theaters today. I saw it this morning in IMAX, and obviously, I'm not going to say too much about it as we will be reviewing it on Fresh Cuts, but I will say if you have the opportunity to go see it, go check it out. I saw it in IMAX today, and I had an absolute blast with it. So I'll leave it at that. Tune into the next episode of Fresh Cuts to find out my and Don's specific thoughts on that movie. But let's say goodbye to 2024 and hello to 2025. And of course, this is episode 34, our first episode of 2025. Now, with this being a new year, we kind of decided to do something new, something that we haven't done on Creature Comforts in our first 33 episodes, and that is an animated feature. Yes. And not only are we doing an animated feature, we're doing an animated feature from a comic book property. And now some of you may be wondering, what are we doing, like a MCU movie or something like that? Well, my friends, we're delving into the DC vaults for this one. Now, those of you who are familiar with the animated Batman movies know that there's a lot of different versions of the Batman universe that they've done within those DC animated movies. A couple of examples are like Batman Ninja, where all the Batman characters are basically samurai, good and evil samurai fighting against each other. There's Gotham by Gaslight, which is basically Batman dealing with like a Jack the Ripper type, if not Jack the Ripper himself. I won't spoil it. And then the movie that we're going to talk about today delves into the Lovecraftian universe, something that you don't often see the DC universe delve into. So that makes this month's movie Batman, The Doom That Came to Gotham.
Doom. The great doom is coming.
The sins of the father are heaped upon the son.
You have no clue the power this book possesses.
I know those who seek it mean to do this city harm.
Before it can be truly saved, Gotham must be burned to the ground.
Talking dead folks, reptile plagues, it's not natural.
It's a cult that has long ties to Gotham.
Spirit, we come to us now.
I can't pretend to know exactly what I'm about to face, but I do know that I must stop it.
We mean to give this city purpose and honor the damnation which bore it.
Mercy.
What did this?
Master Bruce, what's happening to you?
What needs to happen?
Bruce Wayne must die. And through death, become this city's savior. Hello, Bruce.
It can't be.
This film is very new. It's less than 2 years old, dropping in April of 2023. This movie comes in at 1 hour and 26 minutes, rated PG-13. It has a very short one-line synopsis, which is as follows. An ancient evil awakens and only Bruce Wayne can save 1920s Gotham City. So, for those of you who are familiar with both Lovecraft, his writing, and the Cthulhu mythos, you may recognize this story as an adaptation of At the Mountains of Madness. At the Mountains of Madness is my favorite Lovecraft story. Most recently, we got a live-action adaptation of it in 2017, known as The Void, which was my #1 movie of 2017. With The Void, it is a very, very loose interpretation of At the Mountains of Madness. It doesn't take place in Antarctica. There's no ship. It doesn't take place in the 1920s. It takes place in modern day. But it is a very loose interpretation of that mythos that's talked about in At the Mountains of Madness. This movie that we're going to talk about today, The Doom That Came to Gotham, is actually a much more loyal interpretation of At the Mountains of Madness, with this kind of opening in Antarctica with an expedition taking place during the 1920s. Like it definitely has the feel and the mystique of a Lovecraftian story, but with that Batman spin. So you've got Batman with all of his regular cohorts, and then you've got all the villains. Maybe not all of the villains, but some of the villains that make appearances in this movie are like Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, the Penguin, and they all appear as mutated Lovecraftian monsters, which I absolutely love. I just think that the way that they brought Gotham City and all of these Batman characters into the Lovecraft mythos, it really works for me. This is one that I've watched multiple times since it's been released. It's not quite my favorite animated Batman movie. I still kind of lean towards Gotham by Gaslight. I love Jack the Ripper stories. I've studied Jack the Ripper. I actually did a thesis in college on Jack the Ripper and potential culprits who may have been, the different people, about a half dozen or so people that were thought to be Jack the Ripper. So it's definitely something that I've kind of gravitate towards. But for this one, like I said, we're delving into something else that I absolutely adore, and that is the Lovecraft mythos. So before I get too convoluted on my thoughts on this one, let's go ahead and bring in the man who picked this movie. Derek, you picked this movie for this month, so why don't you go ahead and give the folks maybe a little reasoning why you wanted to bring this to the table, and go ahead and jump into your general thoughts on the doom that came to Gotham.
This is kind of like one of those like picks where we're like, there's monsters in it. There was like, it's kind of like that idea of like when we did Mad God. That's kind of like what I compare this pick to, where there's like multiple like different monsters and shit in it, and different aspects of it that we could talk about. And I always like with like these what this is known as is like an Elseworld comic too, where it's like a different universe that the fans know about, like the aspect of this. Everyone's confused. What timeline does this come on? And it's like, it's in its own like separate universe from like the DC universe, where they could tell like these different interpretations. It's kind of cool to see the aspect where they actually have 3 different versions of like the Bat family in this movie as different characters, which you probably like Dick Grayson, and there's a version of Jason Todd in this movie. They changed his name to J. Todd. We'll talk about that later. And we got like a version of Cassandra Cain in this too. Changed their name to Kaylee for some weird reason. I guess that's the aspect of the time period this movie takes place in, I guess. Too, which is 1920s, which it's an interesting aspect to have Batman in the 1920s. It's I actually kind of want to see like a live action version of that aspect of this movie. It'd be kind of cool, especially with James Gunn doing those Elseworld movies now too. Yeah, I just kind of like gravitated toward it because I read this comic back in the day. Like Magnolia wrote it, who also created Hellboy, and there's some similarities. You could tell, like, yeah, this is from the guy who made fucking Hellboy. Especially when you look like fucking the Killer Croc, which is kind of the coolest design. But I love the aspects of Mr. Freeze, played by my favorite, the polka dot man himself, David Dastmalchian. Good.
Yes.
I love seeing him pop up in all these DC stuff now. It's fucking cool. But we got even Last Exorcism fans out there. Patrick Fabian plays Harvey Dent in this. 'Cause, probably my main gripe is actually kind of the same gripe. Actually, we were talking off air, Venom. I know it's one of your gripes in the movie. The voice of Batman is like you'll probably get more into it, but if I was gonna pick, like, I would have like Kevin Conroy do this, or like even like Jason O'Mara. I kind of grew to like his Batman because he did like Batman in multiple movies because they were all connected, so that was kind of cool. Again, one of like even like fucking guy from like fucking House of Usher. He was fucking Batman for a few. Fucking Bruce Davidson or whatever. He was an okay Batman. But anyways, I'm just rambling. There's a bunch of monsters in it. It's Lovecraftian. It's kind of weird, like fucking Mad God. It's probably the only time I'll ever talk about this movie on this fucking. It was a pick where I was like, it's kind of cool, and the cool aspect of it is I really loved was fucking Green Arrow, but we'll get into that when we get into the plot. But I love the fucking look of Green Arrow in this when he's the fucking knight. That was fucking epic.
Nice. Let me go ahead and get in here first as being the kind of the Lovecraftian fan here. I've been reading H.P. Lovecraft pretty much since I was a teenager, which puts it at well over 30 years. Big fan of the mythos. Cthulhu actually, like, I know that Cthulhu is probably the most popular character from the Lovecraftian universe, even though he's technically not my favorite. I'm not even sure if I have a favorite, but it potentially could be one that's discussed in this movie. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But to kind of echo Derek's points on this cast, I mean, we have a great voice cast. And yes, I do wish that Kevin Conroy would have done the voice here. I mean, Kevin Conroy, for those who don't know, unfortunately passed away last year. With this movie being released in 2023, it's quite possible that Kevin may have been sick and maybe just not physically able to do the voice of Batman for this one and Bruce Wayne, which, you know, it leaves a little to be desired by David Giantoli, who is the man who does Batman's voice in this one. He does a fine job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that he does a terrible job. Not at all. He definitely still has that air of Batman to him, that kind of that dominant presence that he brings. But Kevin Conroy will forever be my Batman. He's the one that I always gravitate towards. And yes, it definitely shook me when he passed. Like, as fans, we knew it was coming. I actually went, a really quick story here. I actually went to a screening of Clerks 3 with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes out here in LA when Clerks 3 was first released. And he, during the Q&A after the movie, he actually talked about his love of Kevin Conroy and how, you know, that's his Batman. And then literally 3 days later, we got the news that Kevin Conroy passed away. So it was very sad. But to actually get that opportunity to be in the same room with Kevin Smith and hear him gush about how much he loves Kevin Conroy, it's definitely a core memory that will stay with me forever. But back to the doom that came to Gotham. We also have, we have Jeffrey Combs. We have fucking the Reanimator as a voice here. And he actually
as Man-Bat.
Yeah, exactly. He comes in as the voice of Kurt Langstrom, you know, also known as Man-Bat. But then he also voices Herbert West. Yes,
Dr.
my friend.
West, yes. It was the best.
Herbert fucking West, the Reanimator himself, makes an appearance in this film as Harvey Dent's doctor. And I just... horror fans, I can't imagine a horror fan seeing Herbert West's name on that door and not instantly smiling and just thinking, holy shit, they're...
First time I watched this, I loved it.
Oh, yeah, just the way that they're incorporating properties that we've had with us for over 30, 40 years into the DC universe. Just, that means Reanimator is a part of DC, if you want to kind of look at it that way.
And Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, exactly. So... But, you know, Derek also already mentioned David Dashmelian, pretty much my MVP for 2024 with his appearance in Late Night with the Devil, you know, one of my favorite performances of the year. We've got John DiMaggio, the man who does the voice of Bender on Futurama as Commissioner Gordon in this one, which is awesome. Derek already mentioned Patrick Fabian as Harvey Dent. I mean, yeah, this is
my favorite, the Ryman Demon.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, just a really, really great voice cast. Now, one thing that I wanted to bring to the table is being a longtime Lovecraftian fan, and you know, I constantly consume Lovecraftian content, television, movies, comic books, you know, whatever I can get my hands on, I will consume that. I've heard kind of the same complaint from non-Lovecraftian fans when they watch Lovecraftian content, and that's that the story can get kind of convoluted, the stories can get kind of confusing and complicated. There's a lot of names to have to remember, like especially one where they're talking about multiple elder gods and high priestess of Azathoth and, you know, things like that. For those who don't know, Cthulhu is not technically an elder god. He is the high priestess of Azathoth, Azathoth being the father of all elder gods. But again, I don't want to get into too much of a rabbit hole here because I could talk Lovecraftian lore for hours. I can see how maybe standard DC animated movie fans may not gravitate towards this one because it might get a little too convoluted for them. Obviously, as a longtime Lovecraft fan, I'm used to it. I'm used to the very complicated storylines, the long list of characters, both good and evil. I will say, though, that this movie specifically kind of puts a little bit of a limit to that. Like, our cast isn't gigantic, and we don't talk about constant elder gods. Like, there's one specific elder god that we talk about in this movie that we'll get to in a little bit. That's why Derek and I are both very curious to find out what Don thinks of this. I'm not even sure if Don is a Lovecraftian fan.
Or a Batman fan, for that matter. So it's definitely going to be kind of an eye-opening experience to actually see and hear Don's thoughts on this one.
But like I said, as far as my general thoughts on this movie, I love this. This is absolutely right up my alley. If anything, this isn't Lovecraftian enough for me. For somebody like me who actually loves the mythos, this could have actually gone even deeper into, the Lovecraftian aspects, the cosmic horror of the whole thing.
Imagine if Del Toro did a live action version of this.
Well, hey, I mean, there's actually shots out there of Guillermo del Toro's At the Mountains of Madness. For those who don't know, Guillermo del Toro's passion project, his dream project, the project that he's wanted to do since he started directing, is H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. And he actually started working on some CGI shots for the movie. And if you look it up, you can go to YouTube and look up Guillermo del Toro's At the Mountains of Madness. You'll see unfinished scenes of CGI monsters that were going to be used in that movie. Unfortunately, to actually put the story of At the Mountains of Madness onto film is a very expensive proposition. A lot of effects, a lot of creatures. I mean, there's a horde scene where just countless monsters come out of a cave in Antarctica, and I couldn't imagine filming that. It would be like a Lord of the Rings battle type scene, with all the CGI in it. Unfortunately, the project ended up getting into development hell, and obviously he never finished it. Will he ever finish it? Not likely. He's already said that he's got so many other projects lined up that he's not likely going to be able to do it anytime in the next 5 to 10 years, though it's something that he still would like to do someday. And that's the other thing about Lovecraftian horror, is that would be a very expensive movie to make, but it probably wouldn't be a big hit in theaters. Like, stuff like The Void and Color Out of Space that actually did get theatrical releases don't really do well. Lovecraftian horror doesn't do well in the cinema. And it's for, part of it is the reasons that I already talked about, how common, cinema goers don't find these stories either interesting or easy to follow, whatever the case may be. So yeah, they don't, more than likely we'll never get Guillermo del Toro's At the Mountains of Madness, but at least we've got those couple of scenes, those unfinished shots that are available on YouTube that you can go check out whenever you want. Back to the Doom that came to Gotham. Like I said, I have a great time with this movie. I've watched it 3 or 4 times now. I love how they handle the mythos. The only thing that I question about this movie is their pronunciation of the Elder God in this movie. Now, the Elder God that we're dealing with in this movie for years has been known as Yog-Shoggoth. YOG-SHOGG, or Sothoth. I'm sorry, not Sagoth. Sothoth. SOTHOTH. So I've always known the pronunciation, and I even checked it again today. I went to the Lovecraftian wiki and I played the pronunciation. They'll have that little play button next to the word so you can hear the pronunciation. Most people still pronounce it Yog-Sothoth. Well, in this film, they changed the pronunciation to Eog. So rather than just saying Yog as a 1-syllable word, they turn it into a 2-syllable word. So all throughout the movie, they're calling him Egog-Sagoth. Sothoth, excuse me. I'm even getting confused with the names. But Yog-Sothoth, excuse me, for those who don't know, is the elder god of time. He basically, he's an outer god. He's not an elder god. He's considered an outer god. And what is the difference between elder and outer? That's a story for another podcast. So I'm not gonna dive into that rabbit hole right now because that's a deep one, honestly. But Sothoth, excuse me, is an outer god. He is solidly part of the Cthulhu mythos, and like I said, he is a progenitor of Cthulhu. He's also known as Hoster the Unspeakable, and he is also the father of Wilbur Whateley. For those who are very familiar with the Cthulhu mythos and are familiar with Wilbur Whateley, that he is the son of Yog-Sothoth. So, like I said, it gets convoluted, it gets complicated. I understand that some people just don't want that kind of, they don't want to have to think that hard when they're consuming their animated features, and that's fine. I'm never going to fault anybody for that. If that's the way you are, that's fine. Me myself, I like when stuff is complicated, probably, which is why I'm such a big fan of the Cthulhu mythos. But yeah, I'm just going to cut off my general thoughts here and say I genuinely like this one a lot. It is a top 3 DC animated movie behind really only The Mask of the Phantasm and, like I mentioned earlier, Gotham by Gaslight. Batman Ninja is one that I really like more for the artwork because the art style in Batman Ninja is fucking
Gummies, it's great.
Right? It's like anime on crack. It's just awesome. I love it. The story kind of leaves a little to be desired, which is why I kind of lean more towards Gotham by Gaslight and this movie here. So let me go ahead and shut up and let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room because Derek and I are just on the edge of our seat in anticipation. So let's go ahead and bring Don Anelli in here. Don, what did you think of the doom that came to Gotham?
So I think this will probably help explain a lot of where I'm coming from. Let's start with what I know about Batman. He's a costume superhero that takes inspiration from a childhood trauma. He resides in Gotham City. His parents were killed when he was a kid. He's raised by his butler named Alfred, and his costume is usually either royal blue or black. The end. That is my knowledge and pretty much history with Batman. As for Lovecraft, I'm a fan. I like when I see adaptations of his work. I wouldn't say that I'm well versed in the stories. I know the names, I know the titles, and general like plot outlines. Like, I know Rats in the Walls is, a guy hearing rats crawling away in the walls of his house and drives him to insanity, or Outsider, somebody that lives in a castle that everybody else fears. Like, that's kind of where my Lovecraft thing here goes. So with that, yeah, this was a struggle. I really had a hard time figuring out what was going on because it seemed like everybody was just being thrown at me with very little rhyme or reason. Like, it spent 5 minutes dealing with this one protagonist to then all of a sudden switch things up and say, no, wait, this is the main protagonist. And then all of a sudden one, battle scene later, and then somebody was like, oh, wait, no, it's actually this dude. And 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, wait, no, we found out that this guy is actually the mastermind behind everything. And it's like, I really had a hard time trying to keep track of everything and where it was all going. So in terms of the action scenes, I actually really enjoyed them. The battle with that flaming lava creature thingy, you're going to have to help me with names here. The one in the study where he has to jump out of the way of the flaming rock monster that looks like he's covered with lava.
Okay.
And yeah, that was a really fun scene. The underground temple sequences are really good. I really like where they went with those. Yeah, the action scenes are fun. I don't mind them. If I followed the story, I'd probably be a little bit more invested. Yeah, I'm not really a superhero fan. I'm not really a comic fan. Lovecraft is just somebody that I have a vague idea of. Whenever somebody says it's an adaptation of his work, oddly, I usually end up liking them for some reason. I don't know what it is. Have I read his work? No. Do I consider myself a fan? If you go by, Dunwich Horror and Reanimator and Color Out of Space, yeah, I'm a fan. But other than that, yeah, Lovecraft's not really somebody that I'm intimately familiar with. Batman is somebody that I just have the basic, bare bones, general public knowledge of. And yeah, putting them together in this, not really something that I really would have gone out of my way to watch. Did I hate it? No, but it wouldn't have been something that I would have put on for general amusement. So kind of an interesting one. Like I said, if I would have known more about what was happening, if I would have known who the characters were, if they would have picked one and settled on that, I probably would have liked it even more. But yeah, didn't hate it, didn't love it, just kind of, well, that was confusing, but I didn't hate it. I liked some stuff of it, but if I would have known what was happening, I probably would have liked it even more.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the stories in Lovecraft adaptations do tend to get kind of convoluted. The reason that a lot of horror fans who maybe don't like Lovecraft's writing necessarily still like the adaptations is because they're usually pretty gory. I mean, The Void, Reanimator, Color Out of Space. I mean, you got some
body horror shit going on.
Yeah, a lot of body horror,
So that's one. Well, you bring that up. Is Void an actual adaptation of his writings, or is that just heavily influenced and inspired by it?
No, according to Steve Kostansky, the director, it is a loose interpretation of At the Mountains of Madness. And I'm familiar with the story of At the Mountains of Madness, and I see it. When I watch The Void, I see the similarities. Obviously, they changed a lot of the names, as they did with the Doom that came to Gotham. If you want to look at it, like, the way that Raja Ghul was in this movie is the way that the evil doctor in The Void is. Like, they were the same character, if you remember correctly. If you saw The Void, the evil doctor who actually opens the portal to the Void is basically Raja Ghul's character in this movie. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so there are similarities. Whether you would ever, like, I would never call The Void an official adaptation because they do change a lot of it. Like I said, if you're not familiar with H.P. Lovecraft and specifically At the Mountains of Madness, you probably don't see The Void as an adaptation. You probably see it more as like a ripoff of like Hellraiser and, other body horror movies.
That's what a lot of people complained about when it came out.
Exactly, which really pissed me off because it's like, and again, if you're not a Lovecraft fan, that's fine. But don't call a movie a ripoff unless you're going to do your due diligence and find out what it's actually about, okay? This movie has nothing to fucking do with Hellraiser in any way, shape, or form. It is a Lovecraftian adaptation, and if you can't accept that, then, just don't talk about The Void around me then. Because, like I said, it was my number one movie of 2017. I adore that film, and it wasn't even close. Like, the number 2 movie was like a mile and a half behind The Void. I mean, The Void dropped in April of 2017, and I knew on first watch that was my number 1 movie of the year. Same way I felt after watching The Sadness in 2022. It's a no-brainer. It's gonna be my number 1 movie of the year. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into the story of this one. Our movie opens up with an expedition to Antarctica. Our movie does take place in the 1920s. You can't really tell during the opening scene because they're just on a boat in Antarctica. But once they get back to Gotham, it's very obvious that it's kind of a turn of the century period. The old cars, the old style of clothing and architecture. So like I said, our movie opens in Antarctica. We see Bruce Wayne with 3 of his wards, Kylie, J. Todd. Sanjay, as he's called in the movie, who is our Jason Todd for this movie. And then, of course, Dick Grayson, the original Robin. They are basically following up on information about Oswald Cobblepot, of course, the Penguin, also known as the Penguin, who went missing a few years earlier. And through finding some of his writings in his office, it was discovered that he went on an expedition in Antarctica. What were they looking for? They were looking for an elder god or an outer god in this situation. Basically, there is what's called the cult of Ghul. And yes, it is a reference to Raja Ghul because we get both Talia and Raj, however you want to. I know there's multiple pronunciations, so however you want to pronounce it. We get the Ghul family here. As it turns out, they are the leaders of a cult who are trying to revive Yog-Sothoth, or as pronounced in this movie, Eog-Sothoth. Sothoth, God damn it, I'm going to say it wrong all episode. Please forgive me.
It's going to be a tongue twister. Take a drink.
It's a tongue twister. I mean, because there's Sugaroth, there's Yog-Sothoth, there's Shub-Sagoth. I mean, the elder god names get crazy.
Shug Knight.
Shug Knight. He wishes he was an elder god. Anyway. So basically, Bruce Wayne catches up with Oswald Cobblepot and finds out that this guy's been mutated. He's literally in Antarctica, butt naked, and he's got some kind of growth all over his body. I mean, he still has the traditional look of the Penguin of Oswald Cobblepot, but like I said, he's butt naked, and he's obviously showing off some kind of mutation.
He's fucking up those multiply penguins, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get to those guys. Eventually, Bruce Wayne finds a cave, while chasing Cobblepot. When he walks into the cave, he finds Grendon, who we later know as Mr. Freeze.
Yep.
And he has basically become a disciple of Yog-Sothoth. He is
Cold air.
Yeah, they find his body or representation of his body. It's not actually his body. I mean, he's an outer god. There's no way that he would be trapped on Earth. But it was a physical representation of Yog-Sothoth. And we see that he's picking at the ice, trying to break him free, kind of like what's his name from King of the Monsters, who was trying to break Ghidorah out of the ice. We see him trying to break his way out of the ice. Bruce Wayne makes the mistake of looking up and looking at Yog directly in the eye, which, if anyone who knows anything about Lovecraftian and cosmic horror, if you look an elder god in the eye, you basically go insane. Your brain just can't handle the vision that you're looking at, and you just basically go insane. Well, this is obviously Bruce Wayne, a man with a very accomplished mind. So when he looks at Yog-Sothoth, he starts having hallucinations, but he doesn't necessarily go crazy the way that Grendon and Oswald Cobblepot both have. Now, after Bruce starts having some hallucinations, that's when Grendon, or Mr. Freeze, turns around and reveals that he ripped out his own eyes. Now, again, this comes directly from At the Mountains of Madness. There is a character who, when peering into the eyes of Yog-Sothoth, basically pulled his own eyes out so that he could still serve him. He wants to be a disciple of him. But
Event Horizon.
Yeah, very much so. Exactly. Yeah, big time. That's exactly it. Oh, by the way, Event Horizon, another loose Lovecraftian interpretation. Again, story for another podcast. But yeah, that is definitely very Lovecraftian. Even though they do end up in hell, or at least that's the interpretation of where the Event Horizon goes, is that it's actually hell. It's still very much Lovecraftian with the events that take place on the ship. So yeah, if you haven't seen Event Horizon, what the hell's wrong with you? Get out there and check it out. Anyway, after it's revealed that Mr. Freeze has ripped out his own eyes, Bruce has a couple of hallucinations, and then Grendon attacks him. Bruce punches him in the face, knocks him out, takes him aboard the ship. What they realize is that his body is basically frozen because he's almost naked. He just has pants on, no shirt, no shoes. He's just got pants on. He's basically frozen, but he's still alive. They call him a corpse because he doesn't have a heartbeat. Like, he's not. It's really weird. Again, we're talking about Lovecraftian stuff, so it's out there. He's not technically alive, but he's up and about and moving around. So multiple times in the film, they just call him the corpse. But he is very much alive. Well, at least he's very much moving around with no eyeballs in his head. So yeah, that kind of sucks. Eventually, Bruce and his wards all go back to Gotham. And the other thing that I forgot to mention earlier is that Bruce has been gone for 20 years. In this interpretation of the Batman story, Bruce leaves Gotham right after his parents are murdered. And that's another thing that I forgot to mention in my general thoughts, is I love the way that they change elements of Batman's origin story to fit in this particular story that's Lovecraftian. So rather than it being Joe Chill that ends up killing his parents, or if you want to, reference the Tim Burton movies, Joker before he becomes Joker.
Jack Napier, yeah.
Jack Napier, exactly. What we end up getting here is a member of the cult of Ghoul who actually takes out Martha and Thomas Wayne. But because of this, in this universe, Bruce doesn't stay home. He decides to travel the world and basically learn martial arts, learn detective skills, basically everything that he did in the original storyline in Gotham, he does on the road. So after Antarctica, when they decide to go back to Gotham, they've been gone for 20 years. Literally, Bruce and Alfred have been gone for 20 years. Basically, Lucius Fox is left in charge of all of Bruce's companies and holdings and everything else. So blah, blah, blah. Through Batman's investigation, he realizes that there is a cult of Ghoul that is working in Gotham and that they are trying to get this particular book. There is a book that they need to be able to resurrect Yog-Sothoth. And who is in possession of this book but Oswald Cobblepot, of course. He doesn't actually have it physically on him in Antarctica. He actually has it in his office in Gotham, but he does have someone watching it for him. We get a great little fight sequence between Talia Ghul and Batman when Talia comes to collect the book because, like I said, she is basically the only living member of the cult of Ghul still alive. And she wants to use the book first to resurrect her father, but it's not really her father. It looks like Raja Ghul, but it's really Yog-Sothoth. It's basically Yog-Sothoth in human form. But they still need to do a couple of more rituals before the actual Yog-Sothoth, the giant outer god that's out in space somewhere right now, can come down to our dimension. So, as I mentioned earlier, that Batman has different interactions with mutated villains. We get potentially one of the best interpretations of Killer Croc. Like, this is one of the coolest ever. Just, a mutated Lovecraftian beast.
Dagon monster.
It's like a little Godzilla. We also get Poison Ivy in one very memorable scene where she actually fights. Oh, what the hell is his name? Was that Green Arrow? That's Green Arrow.
Oliver Queen, yeah.
So, yeah, there's a great scene with a mutated Poison Ivy fighting Green Arrow, and really, really cool fight sequence. We already talked about Oswald Cobblepot here appearing mutated. We talked about Mr. Freeze, Grendon with his eyes ripped
Jason
out.
Blood.
Yeah. Oh, right. Jason Blood, Erdogan. Yeah. To actually get to see, or Etrigan, to actually see him in here in his human form, not in his, superhero costume or villain costume, depending on the universe that you're in. Batman has multiple interactions with, these different mutated villains, Talia Ghul. Eventually, Talia is able to resurrect her father, or like I said, the image of her father, who is basically Yog-Sothoth, but in human form. He actually speaks like Raja Ghul. He actually almost talks like he is Raja Ghul, the way that he talks to Talia and everything, but it's technically not him. Multiple set pieces, lots of fight sequences. Bruce obviously having multiple flashbacks, and not flashbacks, but hallucinations. He eventually has a hallucination that basically tells him it's him speaking to the bats, the bats in his mind, and the bats basically let him know that he is the key to beating the doom that is coming to Gotham. They literally say the bat is the only savior that Gotham has, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the long and the short of it is eventually Raja Ghul and Talia are able to resurrect, or at least start to bring Yog-Sothoth into our dimension. At the same time, Batman is basically using the Green Arrow's holy arrows to defeat just different versions. It sucks, but in one scene, Batman actually has to fight his wards. He actually has to fight two of his wards, the two that have died already, J. Todd and Dick Grayson, and then he also has to fight Green Arrow. And obviously that's got to suck for him.
Green Arrow is the best looking Green Arrow.
Is a bad.
Like the Horn King from the Dark Cauldron or whatever.
Yes, thank you, from the Black Cauldron. Absolutely, yes. I love that movie, by the way. Anyway, eventually Batman remembers a part of the prophecy that the bats told him, that basically Bruce Wayne has to die for Batman to be able to become what he must become to save Gotham. And what ends up happening eventually is that Yog-Sothoth does eventually make an appearance, the actual Yog-Sothoth. He starts fighting Batman. He gets him in a grip, in a grip with his hand. He's like shooting cosmic energy at him. It basically looks like Batman has had it. Then he remembers the prophecy that the bats talked about, that Bruce Wayne has to die for Batman to become what he needs to become. And that's exactly what happens. Basically, Bruce Wayne in the Batman costume fighting Yog-Sothoth basically gives himself up to him, basically just stops fighting back. And we see what looks like Yog-Sothoth basically crushing Batman under the weight of his giant fist. What ends up happening is that out of the rubble, out comes a man bat literally Batman, but as a bat, as a bipedal bat, standing up on two legs, looking badass as all hell, glowing red eyes, sharp ass teeth. Just a really, really cool looking character. He eventually is able to get the better of Yog-Sothoth, basically just is able to dispel him, kick him out of our dimension. I forget exactly specifically how the fight ends, but Batman is eventually, with his new abilities, now that he's no longer a human in a bat costume, he is a literal 6-foot bat. He now has the ability to take out Yog-Sothoth, ends up saving Gotham, but unfortunately in saving Gotham, Gotham ends up getting destroyed. Gotham ends up being engulfed in flames, and one of the final shots of the movie is literally fire shooting out of every manhole cover, every gutter on the streets of Gotham. Just any opening to the underground, fire just starts shooting out, and the whole place just basically goes to shit. And then the movie kind of ends basically with just a voiceover of Kylie. Kylie basically is made the head of Wayne Enterprises at the end of the movie, now that Bruce Wayne is gone. And Bruce Wayne is, in this universe anyway, totally gone. Bruce Wayne is not coming back. Yes, the Bat still exists, but Bruce Wayne is gone. So our final shot is basically Kylie and Lucius, basically Lucius presenting Kylie to the public as the new head of Wayne Enterprises. And we get one final shot showing us that Batman is still alive as the Bat, just kind of waiting. Basically, he basically became Godzilla in the sense that he's only going to come out now when Gotham is in danger. So kind of like Godzilla really only makes appearances when the Earth is in danger. He has now become a Gotham kaiju, if you will. Just a normal size one, only 6 feet. So there you go, folks. That is the Doom that came to Gotham. I obviously did not do it any justice with that walkthrough. I kind of zipped through it. The long and the short of it is, I highly recommend this one. If you are a fan of Lovecraftian lore, either cinema, television, writing, whatever the case may be, I think this is a must-watch for Lovecraftian fans. Just to be able to see Batman in this universe and all the Batman villains and Alfred and Lucius and all these different characters, how they traverse this world of Yog-Sothoth is, pretty interesting. It's fun. As Don mentioned, if you're not the biggest Lovecraft fan, then maybe this isn't the story for you. If that's the case for you, then I would recommend Gotham by Gaslight, because that's basically just Batman versus Jack the Ripper. So it's a lot easier story to follow, less characters, less convoluted, things like that. And then Mask of the Phantasm is by far the very first Batman animated movie is still my favorite of all time. That movie was just spectacular.
It's pretty great.
So there it is. What's that? I'm sorry, Derek.
I was going to say, it's pretty great.
Yeah, like I said, I can't recommend this one enough, but there is that caveat of being a Lovecraft fan. Like I said, if you like Lovecraft, if you like Lovecraftian movies, then I would say check out The Doom That Came to Gotham. If you're not into Lovecraft, you find it too convoluted, too complicated, way too hard to follow, then there's a plethora of other great Batman animated movies. That what was the Halloween one that they did?
Oh, The Long Halloween?
Yes, The Long Halloween. That was another good one. That's a two-parter. That's actually a two-part length feature, and that one's really cool. All right, folks, so let's go ahead and get our closing thoughts from our cohorts here. Let's go ahead and bring in Derek first. Derek, any closing thoughts on The Doom That Came to Gotham?
Yeah, I dig it. I agree with what's been said with both of you guys. The aspects where if you're not really if you don't know much about Batman or Lovecraft in the sense of following the storyline and what adaptation it is, it could be kind of confusing. Especially if you don't know what certain characters are supposed to be, too, from the Batman universe. So it might be confusing in that sense, too. Yeah. But other than that, I thought it was a fun ride, for an animated movie. Maybe it would have been great if Killer Croc would, rip fucking Jason Todd in half. If we saw that. Definitely. But, hey, I can't say the whole end battle takes place inside Two-Face. Did we even mention that?
That's right. Yeah. We barely even mentioned Harvey Dent. Yeah, Harvey Dent is in here, and he definitely becomes Two-Face. He becomes a very Lovecraftian Two-Face, almost like a From Beyond, like some kind of creature that you would have seen in From Beyond or something. But we still get a version of Two-Face here. And like I mentioned earlier, I really, really like the changes that they made to this. That's why I think that to watch this one, you have to have both an appreciation of Lovecraft and a general knowledge of Batman, just to see how they change the backstory. They change who kills, Thomas and Martha Wayne. They change his reaction to the murder. There's just little story changes here that hardcore Batman fans are really, really going to appreciate. And then obviously using the actual names of, Lovecraftian outer gods in this one is obviously going to pique the interest of any Lovecraftian fan. So yeah, definitely highly recommended. Let's go to Don now. Don, any closing comments on this one before we get out of here?
I mean, if I would have known a little bit more about it, I probably would have been a little bit more invested. But for a first time watch of this kind of style, I didn't hate it. I mean, there was still some fun to be had. So maybe if I know a little bit more about it, revisit it and see what I think. Who knows? I may change my mind on this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you never know.
It's always good to keep an open mind.
Versus Ninja Turtles in the future.
No. No.
There's creatures. Spoiler: there is monsters.
I allowed this one. I don't know about Ninja Turtles. That might be stretching it a little bit.
That's going in a whole different time frame.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, and then one other thing that I didn't mention is the costume. Batman's cowl in this one. I actually really, really like it. We didn't really mention it. Because the movie takes place in the 1920s, it's got almost like a Sherlock Holmes quality to it. The cape, because it's like a segmented
very
cape.
steampunk.
Thank you, steampunk. I mean, Gotham by Gaslight is way more steampunk than this one. If steampunk is your thing, check out Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah.
But just the style of the costume, the cowl, and the cape specifically. I love the cape in this one. I just thought it looked really, really cool and different. The same way I feel about Gotham by Gaslight's costume, Batman's costume in that one being very steampunk, is also very cool looking. And then Batman Ninja is just a whole nother thing altogether. To actually see Batman as a samurai, pretty fucking cool, if you ask me.
And it becomes a kaiju.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for Creature Comforts, episode number 34. Once again, on behalf of Derek and Don Anelli, this is Mr. Venom, thanking you all so much for joining us. And we hope you enjoyed our, first dive into at least cell-shaded animated films. Obviously, we did Mad God, which was stop motion, but this is our first kind of cell-shaded one, so it was different, a true cartoon. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully 2025 treats you all well. Once again, thanks for joining us, and let's just say bye to the folks.
Goodbye. Yes,
Later.
My fire alarm did go off. Goodbye.
But there's no fire, at least, so that's good.
Yes.
Take care, folks. We'll see you soon.